Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I bring you the next chapter in the heartbreaking yet love-filled story of the single mother, Ly Hoai Ca. In the previous episode, I'm sure you were all shocked and saddened when Hoai Ca suddenly had a miscarriage, losing the child she and Hùng had been eagerly waiting for every single day. That tragedy was like a knife cutting deep into their hearts, leaving behind a pain that nothing could ever heal. But life doesn't stop there. After countless nights of tears, Hoai Ca still has to gather her strength, standing tall as the pillar for her 3-year-old son from her previous relationship. At the same time, the bond between her and Hùng is being tested, both trying to hide their pain so the other won't worry even more. In today's episode, we will witness Hoai Ca's fragile yet resilient days, and Hùng, though tied up with work far away, can't stop thinking about his wife and child, doing everything he can to return home. Touching moments, heartfelt conversations, and silent tears, all will be revealed in this continuation. Please stay tuned to see how Hoai Ca and Hùng overcome this hardship and where their future will lead them. Don't forget to leave your comments, share your feelings, and hit the like and subscribe buttons to support me. Night had fallen and darkness blanketed the whole village. The silence was so deep you could hear the smallest sounds: insects chirping in the roadside grass, crickets calling from distant fields, and the faint wind whispering through the row of bamboo at the lane's entrance. Now and then a dog barked aimlessly in the neighborhood, then fell silent again, allowing the stillness to grow heavier. A thin silver moonlight slipped through the leaves, spilling onto the modest porch where Hoai Ca sat motionless. Her figure was gaunt, her shoulders trembled with every cold gust of night air. Her face was hollow, her eyes red and swollen after many days of endless weeping. Dark circles carved a clear mark around her eyes, proof of countless sleepless nights. Her hair hung tangled over her brow, veiling her vacant eyes, but she didn't bother to brush it away. It seemed all her strength had been drained by an overwhelming sorrow, leaving only a frail body and a shattered heart. Inside the small room, Tony, the 3-year-old boy, slept soundly. His breath was soft and even. To any ordinary mother, that would be a soothing, warm sound. But for Hoai Ca now, it stabbed her all the more. The more she heard her child breathing, the more she felt the vast emptiness inside her, where another tiny life should have been. She rose quietly and walked to the old wooden window. Moonlight slanted across the woman's silhouette as she sat there, clutching a faded body pillow to her chest. The pillow was limp and offered no warmth, yet it was the only thing she could lean on, a fragile anchor in the middle of despair. Tears welled up again and ran silently down her cheeks, soaking the hem of her sleeve. There was no wailing, no bitter reproach, only a stunned hush, only sobs choked deep in her chest. Night wind slid in through the crack in the window, bringing with it a biting chill and the damp smell of earth after the afternoon rain. The cold made her shiver, yet she remained still, letting each gust seep into her skin. Hoai Ca's small, fragile shape looked lost in the emptiness of the room. In the pale moonlight, she resembled a dried leaf, so delicate that a single stronger gust could tear her apart and scatter her into the void. A narrator's voice rises, slow, intense, and aching, like a persistent reminder. After the tragedy of losing her own child, Hoai Ca seems to sink deeper into despair. For her, each passing day is like a repeating nightmare, bleak and shrouded in darkness. Can this little woman find the strength to stand again after the greatest loss of her life? Or will she remain imprisoned in the shadow of painful memories, groping through an escapeless sorrow, unsure of what tomorrow will bring? At the unit, Hùng wore his neatly pressed uniform, every crease in place, his polished shoes reflecting the discipline he carried. From the outside, he was still the strong, stern officer, always upholding the strict standards of a soldier. Yet behind that serious facade, his eyes betrayed exhaustion, heavy with an unspoken sorrow. Endless night shifts, urgent meetings, relentless tactical plans, all had worn his body down. But none of that fatigue could ever compare to the pain gnawing at his soul, lingering like a wound that would never heal. During a brief midday break under the scorching sun, while his comrades found spots to nap or called their families, Hung quietly slipped out to the back courtyard. He chose an old stone bench, far from the noise. Sitting down, his rough hands trembled slightly as he opened his worn leather wallet. From a small pocket, he carefully pulled out a photo with frayed edges, the picture of Hoài Ca and Tony taken on a golden afternoon. His gaze lingered on Hoài Ca's gentle smile. Though her face appeared thin and weary from hardship, her eyes still shone with extraordinary strength. Then his eyes shifted to Tony, the little boy with the innocent smile and sparkling eyes like two tiny stars. Just looking at him made Hung's nose sting with tears. He tried to steady himself, but his vision blurred. His breath grew heavy, and his callous fingers quivered as they traced the faces of his wife and child in the photo. Every touch was slow, reverent, as though he were truly caressing them, like if he only reached a little farther, Hoài Ca and Tony might appear right before him. In that moment, memories rushed back all at once. He recalled the boundless happiness he felt upon first hearing he would be a father. But that joy was cut short by unbearable grief, the devastating news of Hoài Ca's miscarriage, stabbing deep into his heart. Hung had tried to appear strong, but deep down, he knew his heart was bleeding a little more each day. Clutching the photo tightly, he closed his eyes and whispered in his heart, "No matter how far, no matter how busy, I will return. I must be strong, I must endure for Hoài Ca, for Tony, and for the little one who never had the chance to cry his first cry. I cannot fall, because behind me is my family, the very reason I exist." A narrator's voice rises, low and trembling, touching the listener's heart. Though burdened with countless duties, Hung's heart has never once eased from its sorrow. He misses his wife, his child, and aches endlessly for the little life that never came to be. That longing burns like a quiet flame, both a source of pain and the strength that drives him forward on his arduous path. It was the weekend. After endless days buried in stressful work, Hung unexpectedly received the news that he had 2 days off. That single piece of good news felt like a burst of light flooding his mind. All the weight, all the exhaustion suddenly eased, leaving only one burning desire: to return home, to the little nest where Hoài Ca and Tony were waiting. Without a moment's hesitation, he packed his things, folded his uniform, and left behind the unfinished piles of paperwork. Only one thought pulsed in his mind: I must go home, back to my wife and child. Night fell, and the long road ahead sank into darkness. It was late autumn, and the thick night mist pressed down, while the headlight of his motorbike cut through the fog like a single sharp arrow. The engine roared into the silence, mingling with the whistling wind in his ears. Each gust of wind chilled him to the bone, yet his heart blazed hotter, every rapid beat urging his hands to push the throttle harder. The 100-kilometer stretch, once daunting, became a journey of sheer determination. With every turn of the wheels, every rugged mile, one voice kept echoing in his heart: I must go back, faster. Hoài Ca needs me, my family needs me. When the clock struck midnight at last, the small humble house appeared under the pale moonlight. A faint yellow lamp glowed weakly from inside, yet it still shone like a fragile flame holding against the vast darkness. Hung stopped the bike, his shoes coated in dust, and stepped into the yard. His heart clenched as his eyes fell upon Hoài Ca, sitting listlessly on the porch, her gaze vacant, shoulders trembling in the cold night air. In that moment, all his fatigue from the long journey melted away. Without a word, Hùng walked forward, dropped to his knees before her, and wrapped her tightly in his strong arms. That embrace was more than comfort, it was protection, shelter, and all the love and pain he had bottled up for days. In her husband's embrace, Hoài Ca broke down completely. Her tears poured out, no longer held back, soaking into the dark green fabric of his uniform, still heavy with the scent of the road. Hùng pulled her closer, pressing her head against his chest, letting his warmth spread, letting his love chase away the cold and the crushing loneliness. His voice was low, hoarse, trembling yet resolute, carrying across the still night like an unshakable vow. "I'm here now. You're no longer alone." And in that moment, time seemed to stop. The pain, the weariness, somehow, it was all shared between them. The small house, once so cold and empty, now overflowed with warmth. For they had found their anchor in each other, a place to lean on, to rise together, and to face the storms still waiting ahead. The next morning, gentle sunlight slipped through the leaves, spreading a soft golden glow across the porch. In the small kitchen, the kettle whistled as water boiled, and the fragrance of green tea drifted warmly through the air. The family gathered around the simple wooden tea table, yet the atmosphere was tinged with a deep, lingering sadness. Everyone sat quietly, their eyes now and then glancing toward the bedroom where Hoài Ca rested after days of weakness and exhaustion. Hùng sat there, his hands clasped tightly together, his face tense. He drew in a deep breath, his eyes flickering with determination. After a moment of silence, he summoned all his courage and spoke. His voice was low, hoarse, trembling yet firm. "I've thought about this for a long time. Even though the baby is gone, I can't let Hoài Ca suffer more injustice. She has sacrificed too much. I want to hold a wedding, to give her a rightful place, so everyone will know that my love for her is true and whole." His words rang out in the stillness, and the kitchen fell silent for several seconds. Mother Ho's hands trembled slightly, her aged eyes brimming with tears. She placed her thin hand on her knee, her voice breaking with emotion. Tears streamed down her cheeks, filled with compassion for her future daughter-in-law and admiration for Hung's heart. The younger sister clenched her hands tightly as she listened. She turned to Du, and their tearful eyes met. It was clear to both of them that Hung's decision was an act of courage. It was not just a promise, but a form of restitution, a shield of protection for Hoài Ca after such devastating loss. Through her tears, Ha managed a faint smile. Her voice trembled, yet carried warmth. "By doing this, you'll truly touch her heart. Du, and I will help you with everything. We need to make sure she feels that, even through loss, this love is still whole." Du nodded firmly, his hand gripping Hung's shoulder as if to affirm, "You're not alone. We'll stand with you." The small kitchen suddenly overflowed with a rare warmth. Tears mingled with smiles, merging into the air like a silent vow. Everyone knew this would not just be a wedding, but a testament to an undying love, one that had endured loss and grown even stronger. A narrator's voice rose, solemn yet resonant, brimming with emotion. Though the child was lost, Hùng still chose to give Hoài Ca a rightful place. For him, happiness was not only about having children, but about standing beside the woman he loved, protecting and cherishing her for a lifetime. And it was this very decision that moved everyone to come together, preparing for the momentous day ahead. The special day finally arrived. From early morning, the small yard in front of the porch bustled with laughter and hurried footsteps. Beneath the shade of green areca palms, rows of rustic wooden tables were covered with pure white cloths. On each table, clear glass jars brimmed with white flowers, their fragrance gently drifting in the breeze. As dusk fell, tiny candles were lit one by one, their golden glow illuminating faces all around, turning the humble setting into something sacred and warm, like a grand ceremony in the city. The guests were few, gathered only within the circle of close friends and family. And Diep busied themselves arranging chairs, placing fruit platters and teapots, their smiles never fading. Tiu-san, a longtime friend, arrived and immediately clasped Hoài Ca's hand, her eyes glistening with tears of emotion. She looked at her friend, who had endured so many storms, now dressed in a pristine white wedding gown, and her heart swelled with countless feelings. Mother Ha sat quietly in a corner, dabbing at the tears that slipped from her eyes. She pitied Hoài Ca, the fragile young woman who had suffered so much loss and now at last had found a moment of perfect happiness. She also felt pride for Hùng, her son, who remained steadfast in love and loyalty, ready to give the woman he loved a rightful place. A few old friends of Hùng and Hoài Ca were also present. They made no noise, no show, only stood quietly, their eyes full of sincerity. Everyone understood that today was more than a wedding, it was a milestone, proof of a love that had endured sorrow and hardship to finally reach the shore of happiness. Amid this warm, intimate atmosphere, Tony became the sweetest highlight. The little boy wore a neat outfit, a crisp white shirt, and tiny trousers. His hair was carefully combed by his mother, making his innocent face shine even brighter. Tony's clear laughter and cheerful babble rang across the yard as he toddled around the tables. At times he tugged Uncle Du's hand to play, then ran to call for his mother, then burst into giggles as Ha lifted him high into the air. His innocence softened every tense, emotional face, leaving behind radiant smiles mingled with sparkling tears. Though simple, without a band, without dazzling fireworks, every candle, every white flower, every gaze filled with affection helped create an unforgettable ceremony. Here, there was no wealth or extravagance, only connection, sincerity, and the overflowing love of those who truly cherished Hoài Ca and Hùng. That day was not only a wedding, but also a declaration that true love can overcome all loss and pain to write new and brighter chapters in life. In the small yard, bathed in the glow of countless flickering candles, the atmosphere suddenly grew still and sacred. The gentle breeze made the flames sway, casting shimmering shadows across the faces of those present. Everyone fell silent, their eyes fixed on the most solemn moment of the ceremony. Hùng stood in his immaculate military uniform, posture upright though his shoulders trembled slightly. Before him stood Hoài Ca, the woman who had endured with him through countless trials, tears, and sacrifices. Her small hand trembled in his grasp, cold to the touch, yet the firm warmth of his hold spoke clearly. From this moment on, she would never be alone. Hung's eyes glistened red, tears shimmering at the corners. All the pain, the losses, the sleepless nights of torment far away, all of it overflowed in this moment. He drew a deep breath, fixing his resolute gaze on Hoài Ca. His voice, hoarse with emotion yet steady and clear before everyone gathered, rang out. "I love you. I promise to love and protect you for the rest of my life. No matter the storms we face, I will always choose you." Those words, simple yet utterly sincere, were not just a promise, but a vow etched into the hearts of all who heard them. For Hoài Ca, each word pierced straight into her heart, dissolving years of grief and sorrow. Her vision blurred with tears, her lashes quivered, and then a great tear rolled down her cheek. She no longer held back, letting the tears flow, not of despair, as in the long nights of loss, but of joy, of release, of long-awaited happiness. Shaking, Hoài Ca nodded and collapsed into Hung's embrace. his arms wrapped tightly around her, warm and strong, as though he would stake his very life to shield her. In that moment, she felt she had found her anchor again, her trust, her hope. The scars of loss would never vanish, but she now knew she would never walk alone. Around them, no one could hold back their emotions. And Du clasped each other's hands, eyes reddened with tears. Tusan stood behind, quietly brushing a tear from her cheek. Mother Ha sat nearby, a gentle smile blooming through her blurred eyes, her heart swelling with contentment, for at last, the unfortunate young woman had found her true happiness. The air brimmed with stillness, mingling sorrow and joy. And in that instant, everyone understood love, when strong enough, becomes power enough to guide people out of darkness. A narrator's voice rose, slow and deeply stirring. Within tears of happiness, Hoai Ca found faith and hope once more after all her pain. For true love, when it grows strong enough, becomes a guiding light, leading us through loss and grief, toward the promise of tomorrow. The ceremony ended in cheerful chatter, in firm handshakes and affectionate gazes, brimming with blessings. The candles slowly burned out, but their warmth lingered, carrying with it the sweet aftertaste of such a momentous day. Hoai Ca gently rested her head on Hung's shoulder, her eyes still wet, tears rolling down, but now they shone with happiness, no longer clouded with sorrow. Beside them, Tony ran joyfully around the yard, his tiny hands waving to everyone. His innocent laughter added a touch of peace to this sacred moment. Guests left in high spirits, yet each carried home an indescribable emotion. The little house now overflowed with laughter, as if all the pain had faded away, making room for happiness. And yet, behind this warm curtain, life's unnamed trials still loomed. The quiet, subtle, but meaningful presence of Du, along with Hung's growing burdens at work, hovered like clouds drifting across a blue sky. No one could tell if they would dissolve, or erupt into a sudden storm that might sweep away the fragile joy just regained. The narrator's voice rose, warm yet edged with suspense. This simple wedding brought smiles and hope back to Hoai Ca. But will the storms truly end here? Or is this only the brief calm before a new tempest? Stay tuned for the next episode to see where fate will lead them.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến video tiếp theo về nội dung của lytudiep. Như mọi người cũng đã biết, James và lytudiep thì yêu nhau cũng rất sâu đậm và yêu nhau một thời gian rồi. Hiện tại thì James và Diệp đang cùng nhau xây dựng một tổ ấm riêng cho riêng mình, và đặc biệt rằng cả hai đã nhận nuôi bé Nhi làm con nuôi. Tuy nhiên, cái điều mà nhận nuôi bé Nhi lại khiến cho bố của James rất là phản đối với cái quyết định này. Vì thế ông đã dùng nhiều cách để ngăn cản cái hành động đấy của James, nhưng mà James thì đã cãi lại lời bố mình và vẫn quyết định là sẽ bảo vệ bé Nhi và Diệp. Điều đó thì khiến cho bố James vô cùng tức giận, và ông đã trừng phạt James bằng cách rằng cắt hết mọi nguồn đầu tư cũng như tài sản của anh, cũng như là coi như là bắt anh phải ra đi tay trắng. Nhưng điều đó không thể làm khó được James. Vậy thì hành trình tiếp theo của James sẽ như thế nào? Hãy mời mọi người hãy đón xem vào tập sau nhé.